Welcome to the Life Chat Podcast, seeking the truth with Derek Powell, navigating you through. Every Wednesday night, new topics ignite. Join the journey, let's take flight. Bringing insights that change our view. Derek's voice, clear and true. Tune in each week, discover new light. Life Chat Podcast, reach a new height.
Welcome once again to Life Chat Podcast, everybody. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. You know, I was just thinking about earlier, man, how far I've come in recent years. And the reason why I say that is because I looked at these gray hairs on my face, and there was no way I ever considered having a gray hair. There was no way in the world I thought I would be to this point of having gray hairs all over my face. But one thing about having those gray hairs today, I definitely appreciate it. I definitely appreciate my grays because that's my experience. That's everything I've been through. That's just the fact that I was afforded the opportunity to be on this earth, to be on this planet, to be amongst the living for this long. So that's why I'm appreciative of my gray hair today. So you can take that how you want to take it, but I'm just telling you I appreciate my grays. But let's move into the topic at hand. The topic at hand for tonight is understanding ego in recovery, featuring Mr. Greg Wright. Hey, Mr. Wright.
What's going on, my brother? How you?
Not much. I'm well. I mean, I was just talking about my gray hairs and how much I really didn't see myself having gray hairs at one point. You know how it is when you're a little bit younger and you think you're going to live forever and you think that everything's going to stay the same. But, you know, today I realized that I have to appreciate my grays, and I love my grays for all the experiences that I've been through and everything I've dealt with in life, man. So,
Yeah, man.
you know,
That's wisdom.
definitely, I got a little bit, just a little bit, you know, and I think my ego at one point wouldn't allow me to say, hey, I got some grays, I'm going to cover it up with some dye. But today I don't even worry about that, man. You know, I
Right.
appreciate it. And not only do I appreciate it, there's some women out there that, never mind, that's a totally different topic. But let's get into the topic, man. Ego and recovery, understanding ego and recovery. So give us a little bit about who you are, what's going on with you.
Yep. My name's Greg. I'm from Wilmington, Delaware. I am a man in recovery. Um, I in the treatment industry as well. I've been working in it for about 8 years. Um, I've been as a part of, you know, the recovery, and I've also um, participated in 12-step fellowship, um, helping other 12-step process and through the 12-step myself. And it's just something for me on a personal level. Um, this journey is one of the coolest things that I've ever, been a part of, getting closer for me, getting closer to God and kind of learning about getting to experience life on the other side of and this thing over on that other side.
You know, one thing before we really get into this thing, uh, it's kind of difficult to hear you. You're kind of like your words are kind of separating, uh, like closer to your mic, to your phone.
Okay. Can you hear me? How's that?
Yeah. I mean, I understood what you were saying, but it was kind of choppy. But we understood majority of it, you know. But I do want to just mention this too. I mean, I've been knowing Greg for a minute, and I don't know if you mind me mentioning how we know each other.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, unless you want to go into it.
No, you got it, brother.
Okay, well, I met Greg a few years ago. I don't remember the exact dates, but I was at a house in Newcastle area in a recovery type house, recovery based house, a sober living house actually. CCD. I probably shouldn't have mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it. I was in a home, in a recovery home, and Greg was the coordinator of that house. And I consider Greg to be the overseer of the house. But and I think the reason that Greg was in that position was because of his information that he had, you know, the knowledge that he had at a younger age than a lot of people that came through. And I don't know if Greg knew it or not, but one thing that I respected about Greg was the fact that he was a younger individual in the house, but he had the mental capacity to actually be able to run the operations of the house and the functions of the house. But I never told him that because I didn't want to blow his head up anymore. But you know, Let's just keep going, man. Let's keep talking about this topic. Understanding ego and recovery. What is ego?
So yeah, it's very important to understand what the ego actually is. And one of the most important things to understand about the ego is most of it is not true, right? It's the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves. You know, everybody who they are. Most people tell you, you know, profession, if they're married, if they're a parent, and take these labels and who they are. Um, and I was saying, how I love being in recovery because going through that process, it gave me a deep understanding that I'm not the ego. There's something else, inside powerful, than my ego. Um, that saying. Have you ever heard somebody say, "I can't live
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in that sentence"? Right? You have the I, and then the self. The self is the ego. So right, and the I is you know spirit, whatever label you want to put on it. And that is for me what I found. That's who I really am. That thing inside of me that has the ability to observe my thoughts, um, and that is connected to something that is more powerful than me. My is selfish and self-centered, right? Operate, operate going around the world, um, seeing what it's all about me. Um, I do is selfish and self-centered when I'm operating through ego, and cause for disaster. I'm always on collision with something.
Move closer to your mic.
Can you? Is that better?
Now it is so far.
All right.
But okay, so with understanding the ego, right? So is it the fact that we don't, when you say we can't, like, to live with yourself, to live with yourself and understand that process, and having the thoughts go through your head that you are this thing, this person, this being, whatever, and you have to live up to those standards. And then when it all boils down, you realize that this is not really what you are or who you are. How does that handle?
How is it? Um, usually by more force. Even though I have the evidence that this way of living is not working, I don't know no other way, right? And the reason why that is because before gaining any understanding, I'm identified with my thoughts. I think just because I have a thought that it must be true and it's who I am. And if I'm operating that way, I'm not really in control. I'm being driven by something else. And I don't even know what's driving me. I just think that this is how life is and this is the way, things are. And as long as I'm easing the pain and discomfort that I'm feeling when I'm living, then I think everything is okay. The problem is I don't have the power to 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 make myself feel better in a healthy way for an extended period of time, which is why a lot of people turn to substances. Because usually the problem is pain or some sort of discomfort. I don't like the reality that I'm in, so I want to change my reality. It may start off
Dysfunction.
as Yeah, it may start off as fun. I ask a lot of people, you know, um, in early recovery, and they'll tell you that I just like drinking. It's fun. Well,
Okay.
it may have started out as fun, but there comes a point to where it's no longer fun, and now I'm drinking or I'm doing drugs to escape my reality because I don't like my reality.
The cover up, the cover up to try to deal with the emotions or the issue that's underlying at the time.
Absolutely.
But in doing that, we only escalate the problem. We only move everything else from here to here, make it
Yeah.
bigger than what it actually is. We make more of a problem. But I
Yeah.
wanted to say this too. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that this is why platforms like this are important because a lot of people they don't know any other way. So we get caught in this cycle of pain, and we do our we do our best to fix it, but our best is just our best. And if I don't know any way out, then I'm just going to continue to do what I think is best, which doesn't work, and it just causes problems.
And that's why it's always good to have individuals like us, individuals that are going through the same thing, been through the same thing, or even still dealing with the same type of issues, to come on platforms like this, like you said, and share these experiences to understand and give people an understanding and a little more detail on how we got to be where we're at. Not saying that we're above anybody else or anything else, but we're not still stuck in our mess. So like newcomers, if newcomers watching stuff, watching episodes, will understand that they're not alone. That whole feeling of it's just me and nobody understands me and this and that. And then the ego again kicks in and says, "Well, I'm the man, I can do this." And no, we can't do it alone.
Yeah,
We're definitely gonna be in trouble.
yeah.
I know firsthand. But I also wanted to mention this, man. I remember you used to say this one thing. I think this might be the biggest thing that stuck with me about you. You used to mention. I don't know if I'm gonna get it right, like verbatim, but you used to ask a question. Uh, if using was legal, if you could use without losing anything, would you still do it? If you could get high without losing weight, if you could get high without losing your bank account, if you could get high without losing your wife, whatever, would you still do it? And of course, a lot of us would say, yeah, of course, sure we would. And your response would be that you wouldn't, because you would lose what?
My connection to God. And you said something that's very, very important. When we're in our mess, as you said, it feels like we're alone. That is the ego.
Hmm.
The ego is the great separator. Um, and I know a lot of people hear this in one form or the other, but we're all connected, and it's cool because they're actually proving this in science. It's a field of science. It's called quantum physics, and what they're proving is on a quantum level, on the smallest scales possible, we're all connected. We're all a part of the same consciousness, right? But what the ego does is it separates us. And if you're in this giant universe and we feel separated or we feel isolated, that's a very, very scary thing.
And a
You
dangerous
know,
place to be. Yeah.
it's scary. It can feel dangerous. Um, and the ego, it always feels under threat, right? So because I'm afraid, because I'm scared, I have to make myself feel better in some way, and usually that entails taking a substance or engaging in a behavior um, that helps me, not feel as alone. But going back to your original question, I would like to think I wouldn't want to use any substances because that further disconnects me from God, right? It further disconnects me from a way of living that is healthy. Otherwise, I can't live in a healthy way. I can't function in this world and have good relationships um, if I'm not living by a certain set of principles. And the ego, like I said, is selfish and self-centered, so it can give a damn about living right or living by or living by principle. So it just kind of does what's necessary to survive. That's his only goal is to survive, to ensure its
Survival,
survival.
which is another dangerous place to be. Survival mode in any
Yep.
form. So I back to this again, right? Initially, I wanted to do pros and cons of ego, ego and recovery. But then it was mentioned that there's going to be too much of it. I'm going to say it like this: there's going to be too much of an imbalance. There's really no pros.
Yeah.
Um, so give us some cons. What are some cons to ego in recovery? I'm going to give you one. I'm going to give you one. Maybe it'll work. You know, one of the cons to having this huge ego in recovery, having a big ego in recovery, is that we get, think you know it all. Nobody can tell you anything. You got all the answers to every situation, including everybody else's business, until the bricks come tumbling down on you or on me.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say the inflated ego. So
Yeah. So recovery is all about connection, and if I have a huge ego, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to connect to other people, to connect with other people. Humans, we were designed to be in community, right? So I can't establish a genuine connection with other people if I have this huge ego. The ego does not have the ability to see itself as an equal to others. I'm either better than you or I'm less than you, right? And if I feel like I'm less than you, I'm trying to be better than you. So it just really disrupts any sort of genuine connection. And it's imperative for people in recovery to be connected to community. And when I mean connected, I'm talking about, being a part of, um, being around like-minded individuals that are on the same journey, on the same path, so that I can get help and that I can help others, right? The reason why, you know, people stay clean and sober for so long is, mostly is because they give it away, right? They give the knowledge they have obtained away to other people to help them, just like somebody, just like they were helped
so with
without
all
without the big ego, because it's a very thin line. It's a very, very thin line. If I'm helping people, quote unquote helping people, I say quote unquote because when I gain some understanding, I realize is that it's really not me doing the helping. I'm just a vessel for something bigger than me, to operate. But if I don't have that understanding, by me being useful to others, that can start inflating my ego, you know. So it's a very thin line.
Say that one more time. I think you should say that one more time. Say that
Which
one more
part?
time. About if you're helping other people, you're helping individuals, that could inflate your ego. How
Absolutely.
why would you say that? Why would you say that? I understand why, but I want you to elaborate on it a little bit.
Why would I say that it'll inflate my ego if I'm helping others?
Yes, it could possibly. Yes.
It could, because you gotta understand that the ego, it's a taker, right? It's this delusion in my mind that I am superior. So if I'm getting confirmation that I'm superior, it's just going to grow it. I get this confirmation because I'm helping you, so you're less than me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm helping you, so you're less than me. And the more and more I do that, if I'm not careful, then I can start to feed this idea that I'm like I'm doing it. And if you don't understand what I mean when I say I'm doing it, I'm talking about when you go through this spiritual process, you start to understand that, like I said earlier, that I'm just a vessel for another being, God. I'm just a vessel for God to use me to do his will, not my will. Right? Ego was all about self-will. I think I know what I want, right? So I'm gonna operate in the world selfishly and self-centeredly because I think I know what I want. That's self-will. I'm gonna do what I want to do when I want to do it. God's will is about, to my understanding, it's about serving others, and that may not always, you know, that might not always be what I want to do.
Mhm.
You know,
I want to know one situation or one scenario where you feel as though, or where you can remember that your ego became the issue in the recovery process. I'm going to give mine too.
what this is every day, every day. And you may want a specific example, but I'm gonna just speak generally because I know, especially if people are new to recovery, it's very, very important to understand certain things about the recovery process. And one of those things that is, we get a daily reprieve based on our spiritual condition,
Elaborate on
right?
that, please. Elaborate
We
on
get
the
a,
daily reprieve because a lot of people don't
we,
understand what the word reprieve means. So,
So basically, if I go to treatment and I work the 12-step process, right, that doesn't mean that I'm good for life or I'm healed for life. So the daily reprieve is I have to do things every day to make sure that my spiritual condition stays fit, that I stay fit spiritually. So like I'll give you an example. Like physical fitness. If I'm out of shape, I'm 100 pounds overweight. So I start eating right. I start going to the gym. I get in shape. I'm healthy. I got a six pack. All of these things, right? I'm in shape now. If I stop working out, if I stop eating right, I'm gonna get out of shape again.
Start looking like me. But go ahead.
I'm gonna get out of shape again. So it's the same thing spiritually. I do certain things to get my spiritual condition and how it's supposed to be. And if I stop doing these things, then I'm going to get sick again. So and I have to do certain things every day on a daily basis to make sure that I don't get sick again. Um, yesterday's work don't keep me sober today. Yesterday's, what I did yesterday doesn't keep me spiritually fit today. Yesterday's, exercise session in the gym won't keep me physically fit today. So I have to ensure that I'm maintaining my spirituality um, daily. There's certain things that I have to do daily. And the thing about the ego is it doesn't go away. It lives with me, right? It's me. It's a part of me. I won't say it's me. That's the problem. For a long time I thought it was me, but because I have this entity inside of me, this ego inside of me, this character inside of me that is very, very selfish and self-centered, I have to I have to first of all, I have to be aware of that. And second of all, I have to do things to ensure that it doesn't become the dominant the driver of my life. I want my spirit to be the driver of my life as opposed to the ego.
Because when the ego becomes the driver, now you it's like your personality sucks.
Right.
The whole disposition, the whole personality sucks.
Right.
Um, and I'm trying to figure out why you even went to the physical fitness part because you kind of crushed my ego just then talking about all this working out and all this stuff, knowing I ain't doing none of that. But no, and you mentioned you took the words out of my mouth when you said every day about a time in the recovery process for you when ego became an issue. And for me, I can relate to that because sometimes just the way I conduct myself, just some of the things, some of the ways I feel about myself. Sometimes I know that I get to the point where I just feel like I'm doing more than other people. I feel like sometimes I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Don't judge me, please. I feel like I'm better than some people that make I just feel that way. And
Me too.
I think I don't know what that comes from, but that's just the way I feel sometimes. I don't know if it's just my judgmental side or whatever it is, but sometimes I just feel like I'm doing more than other people are doing. And the ego kicks in when I walk around like I got it all under control. And then when I'm riding around and that thing hits me and I can barely make it past the liquor store, or I start looking at women in a crazy way, or that thought hits me about going out to use.
Hmm.
Now I'm back in reality.
Right.
Now I got to pull over somewhere and think to myself with tears in my eyes.
Right.
Because I let that ego get way up here and get inflated.
Mm.
But yeah, but so in this process now, what are some tools to deal with the ego, to deal with the inflated ego, or to make sure to maintain the ego? That's the word I was looking for, maintain, because we all have ego. Everybody, we
Right.
all have ego, but we have to
Right.
maintain it so it doesn't get too far out of hand and out of control.
Right. So again, I'm a man in recovery, right? And the work that I did to um to start the healing process was the 12 steps. I participate in a 12-step fellowship. And there's certain, and I won't go into to all of the steps. I'll just kind of give a brief idea of of what that process is all about. So a huge part of that process is inventory. Um, I'm taking an inventory of myself. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm no longer blaming the world for my problems. And what that does is it gives me clarity of how I've been operating in the world. I'm mad at everybody else when reality is I'm the problem and I've always been the problem. So that's an ego shrinker right there, right?
And
When
this
I
is
do
it.
that,
This is in recovery, not in in the use, not in
right?
active addiction. Okay.
Right. I'm physically separated from substances. Now I'm starting the process of, you know, getting better spiritually because the disease of addiction is one of those things, man, where the only real effective long term solution that they found is a spiritual solution, which is what the 12 steps is. So I'm doing inventory through this process, and I'm seeing my character defects, and I'm seeing how I've behaved throughout my life, right? So that's shrinking the ego right there. And another piece to that process is making amends. You know, a lot of the times we think we get sober and we get into recovery, and all of the harm that we done just goes away. You
No,
know, the
no.
people that I lied to, the people that I stole from, like all of that's forgiven now because I decided that I didn't want to drink no more. But that's not
Man,
true.
listen, there's still some people that want their money.
That's
They
what I'm
still want.
saying.
They still. Yeah. They still want
That's what
their
I'm
money.
saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So I go out and I got to make these things right. I get, I get right with God through this process. I get right with myself through this process, and now I have to get right with the world. So inventory is huge. Making amends for all of the harm that I caused is huge, and just enlarging my spiritual life. How do I enlarge my spiritual life? I continue to take inventory. I continue to make amends because just because I stopped drinking, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect now. I'm human. I still live with this ego. So I'm going to continue to make mistakes and I have to watch for these things, right? I have to watch for the ego. I have to watch for when I'm being selfish and self-centered. I have to watch for fear and all of these different things. And when I make a mistake and I owe an apology, I have to do that. So that kind of, keep not kind of, it does keep the ego small. Um, and a huge part also is prayer and meditation. You know, I pray and I meditate. Um, I try daily. It doesn't always work out that way, but I definitely try to do that as much as possible and being of service to others. When I'm helping you, I can't be thinking about me. So
Because it's
that
not.
is huge.
Yeah. That's
That's
not
huge.
helping. Yeah.
That's huge. When I'm helping somebody else, 9 times out of 10, I'm not thinking about myself. And when I'm not thinking about myself, obviously I'm not an ego because that's what the ego is. It's the self, right? I'm selflessly being a vessel for God or for a higher power, to operate. And when I take that position in the world, everything is how it's supposed to be because it's not me running the show, it's something else running the show. So inventory, amends, and service, you know what I mean? Serving others is huge because it takes you outside of yourself.
And you mentioned about service, about serving others. It don't have to be like I think sometimes we believe that serving others or service has to be some big stuff on a grand scale. It really don't. It really
Right.
don't. It don't have everything don't have to be seen. And I believe a lot of times we want to be seen. We want recognition for everything to the most minute detail. And I think that takes away from. I don't think. I know that takes away from the actual action of what you're doing. It takes away from
Right.
what you're doing. There's no benefit.
Right. Well, because it's feeding the ego. If I'm doing something just to to get praise for it, that's not of God. You know what I mean? That's of me. Straight up. Like if I'm helping an individual, you know, for my benefit, kind of defeats the purpose. It's like these, you get on social media and you see people giving a homeless person money with the camera
Yeah,
out.
Yeah.
Like, bro, what are you doing? You know, like if I'm going to do, if I'm truly, genuinely, doing things for the right reasons, I don't need nobody to see it.
But they
You
have
know,
a million. They have a million views and 500,000 likes. So
absolutely,
somebody's paying attention. But
absolutely,
I understand what you're saying. I definitely understand what you're saying.
yeah.
So glorification. And one more thing, man, before we wind down. You mentioned about making amends.
Mhm.
Making amends. How does making amends work in your process?
So making amends. First of all, the word amend means to put back together, and I say that because a lot of times people may think saying sorry is sufficient. And if you live like I've lived, sorry is insufficient.
Not gonna
I've
work.
said
Yeah,
I've said I'm sorry so many times to the point to where that word just it loses value after a certain point. So when I'm making an amends, I want to obviously approach somebody, let them know everything that I've done wrong, how I've harmed them. I want to ask them if there's anything that I failed to mention because a lot of the times we cause harm in ways that
yeah,
we're
we do.
unaware of. So I want to ask, yo, is there something that I left out here? You know, and be willing to listen. If I'm asking somebody how I caused harm, I'm not interrupting them and correcting them and saying, well, it didn't happen. Like, nah, man, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna listen to how they feel. And then most importantly is I'm gonna ask them, what can I do to make it right?
That's
And
rough.
that's
That's rough.
that's very it's very important because I have this idea of how I can make it right, and I think I know how to make it right, but that may not be sufficient for them. So I'm going to ask them, yo, what can I do to make this right? And I have to be willing to do what they say, so long as obviously it ain't nothing crazy, but yeah.
So one of the things you ever had. I don't know if anybody else has, but yeah, you ever asked, tell somebody you're sorry? Please just listen to me, Greg. Just listen to me. You ever say I'm sorry, and the person says, yes, you are. Listen, I had somebody say that. Somebody's responded. Somebody said that to me once. I said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. They said, yes, you are.
Mm,
And it hurt me because they were basically saying I was a sorry individual at the time. I
mhm.
wasn't doing anything. I wasn't taking care of myself. So that crushed me. Called me sorry. Me,
Yeah.
Derek Powell. But at the time, I truly was. And as far as making amends for me, the biggest part of making amends for me came in when I wanted to start to rebuild my relationship with my children. And it took me a while to even understand that I wasn't going to be able to buy them anything to get them back to that point. None of that stuff. It was just about me being there, being available, and doing what I'm supposed to do. Not even this might sound crazy, but not even as a father, just as a person.
Mm,
Because initially, if they're not even comfortable with just being around me as a person, definitely not gonna want me to be around them as a dad or to get up under my wing. None of that. If they don't even feel comfortable around me as a person, then I'm still in trouble.
yeah.
So it wasn't about trying to making amends. To me is not about going out and buying you this and buying you there and taking this. Not doing that. I'm just going to live the way I'm supposed to live, the way I should have been living in the first place, and just do what I have to do to maintain that. And
Right.
now we can build on that, and that's where it's been going for me.
Yeah.
But everybody's situation is not the same.
Yeah.
Um, so is there anything else you want to have? Anything that you have to say? Anything else you want to add to the conversation, Greg?
Well, yeah, just wanted to touch on that piece where you said the amends and not everybody's situation is the same. It's very, very important that when we're doing this process that we're, you know, in the 12-step fellowships, they call them a sponsor, right? And a sponsor is somebody who has done this work before and they are kind of guiding you through it. So I just want to ensure that people understand when going through this, man, like you're not by yourself going through it. You will be given instruction. Um, whether you take the instruction or not is, your choice. But it's important that we're not going into these situations, especially in men's, um, without being properly equipped to do it. Right. So and an example of what I mean is a lot of times people go to a 28-day treatment program, they start feeling better and they want to get out and they want to repair all of the damage that they've done when spiritually they're just not prepared to do that, right? Because sometimes when you're making an amends or sometimes when you're cleaning up your side of the street, you might not get the reaction that you want.
Yeah.
They might tell you to go F yourself. You know
Drive
what I
you
mean?
right back out. Drive you
Yeah,
right
and if
back
you're
out.
not
Yeah.
if you're not solid spiritually, like you, it's going to drive you right back out because that hurts. And one of the reasons why we use is because of pain and uncomfortability. And if we're not ready and thrown back into pain and uncomfortability too soon, we're going to go to what we know, and that's how can I feel better as fast as possible.
Mhm.
So, again, this recovery thing is about community, it's about connection. So we're not doing it by ourselves. We're definitely doing it with the guidance of others who've done it already.
All right. Okay. And Miss Black, I gotta give it to you, man. You don't miss a beat. You don't miss a beat, man. Like, you're one of the people that can uh, elaborate on just about anything. I think that comes from being a shyster. But now that's what you. But
You ain't lying.
so I'm so, but so I'm glad that you came on tonight, man. I'm glad. I appreciate you for coming on, and hopefully this won't just be a one-time thing. Um, Maybe we can connect again and get involved in some other stuff together, a couple meetings or something. Actually, I'm coming up that way between tomorrow and Friday. So maybe we can connect.
Yeah,
But
absolutely, bro.
I'm glad you came on tonight, man. I appreciate you for coming on, and I'm hoping that somebody, matter of fact, I know somebody's gonna get some information out of this, whether it's people that's watching now or individuals gonna watch later. But I just want to say thank you once again for coming on. I appreciate you. Everybody be safe, be blessed, have a great night. Oh, don't forget, like, share, comment, subscribe, Life Chat Podcast. Thank you. Good night. Be safe. Be blessed.